the sound of a legend. The Porsche 911. With its rear-mounted boxer engine and timeless design, it stands as the most successful sports car in history. It combines sportiness and everyday functionality like no other vehicle, a street-legal race car. This is where the legendary 911 comes to life, Stuttgart Zuffenhausen. Since 1963, Germany has been crafting one of the automotive world's most iconic machines. Within the heart of Porsche innovation, the Weissach Development Center, engineers dedicate themselves to perfecting each new generation of the iconic sports coupe, ensuring it evolves without ever losing its true 911 identity. A unique design from day one and unequaled racing history. Over the course of decades, the 911 has earned the label legend. Countless enthusiasts dream of owning a piece of racing history, ideally in pristine condition. Now, the 8th generation of this legendary sports car is well on its way to cementing its place as an icon on 4 wheels. Porscheplatz in Zuffenhausen, Germany. This is where they build the legendary 911. The sports car builder's main plant is a place with a long tradition. Since the first 911 was created here in 1963, a small swinging speedster has achieved mythical heights. And the name Porsche has become world-renowned. The result of decades of research and development. Now the 3,000 employees in series production fabricate around 250 cars per day. The Zuffenhausen plant is Porsche's home sweet home, and the 911 is clearly the icon of the Porsche brand. The list price for the top model of the 911 Turbo S is just over €200,000. For that sum, the proud owner comes away with a 1.6-ton sports car with a 650 horsepower engine. To accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, the 911 Turbo S takes just under 2.7 seconds. Its 6-cylinder boxer engine with 2 turbochargers can push the speedometer's needle past the 300 km/h mark. At the heart of the 188-acre Porsche plant lies the birthplace of every 911. The sports car's exterior is produced in the Bodyworks. 350 employees and 286 robots weld, glue and rivet the sports car into its striking shape. This body will eventually become a Turbo S, the most powerful version of the 911 with its distinctive air intakes right in the front of the rear wheels. There are 130 in the Bodyworks alone. Robots handle most of the high-precision punching, welding and gluing. The machines are more accurate than humans, and they work longer hours. A robot doesn't even know what it means to get tired. On a transport sled, the bodies enter the home stretch. From here on, in the final 50 meters, human hands can also intervene. Here, 30 employees install the last parts, such as the trunk lid, which, as everyone knows, is in front of the 911. Once the hinges have been bolted on, the employees verify the gaps. When those gaps exceed specifications, wind noise can get loud fast at top speed. After 4 hours, each of the 236-kilogram bodies is whisked away in an elevator and automatically transferred to one of the paint shops. The path they take is another unique feature of the plant. Conveyed through overhead skyways high above the grounds of the plant, the cars move from one production hall to another. All Porsche 911S are painted in the main plant in Zuffenhausen. The priming of the bodies begins in a cathodic electrodeposition bath. Electric current flows through the entire basin. The coating it contains is positively charged, while the vehicle itself is negatively grounded. There is a mutual attraction between the car and the primer. This enables the 20-micron, 0.8mm thick primer to reach even the smallest cavities, providing first-class corrosion protection throughout. The machines get busy again. Robots spray on 3 more coatings, one to protect against stone impacts, then the actual color coating, and finally the clear coat. The entire process takes 9 hours. Upon completion, the car weighs about 19 kilograms more. The coated bodies continue their journey, moving along a 250-meter overhead route to the other end of the plant site. The sports car legend's basic outline is already apparent. That's the way it should be, because one rule has never changed: a 911 must look like a 911. A fully painted body rolls off the assembly line. At the first of 117 stations, assemblers mount protective shells to prevent scratches and damage. In Zuffenhausen, individual dream cars are built in series production. All of the company's 2-door sports cars come from this assembly line. Not only all 911 models, but also all 718s, like the Boxster and the Cayman. These employees slide a heavy sack into the car. It contains the car's nervous system. The wire harness is supplied as a prefabricated assembly and now only needs to be routed. This operation takes 4 men because the work must be completed in 175 seconds. That's the cycle time. Then comes the next car. The assembly line advances at 2 meters per minute, and no 2 cars are alike. A 911 can be followed by a Cayman. The employees here are perfectly able to assemble all models. At the next station, workers fit the instrument panel into place. The cockpit pre-assembly team has already put it together on a smaller line adjacent to the main one. Using an assembly arm, a technician guides the completed instrument panel into the vehicle. A blue protective mat covers the component to avoid any damage during installation. In the 911, it's the tachometer, not the speedometer, that sits in the center. That's exactly where it should be. After all, race drivers focus on engine revs, not on how many kilometers per hour they're going. A few meters down the line, each convertible receives a critical safety feature, the roll bar. In the event of a rollover, 2 bars deploy in fractions of a second to shield the occupants' heads. Every version of the 911, be it coupe, cabriolet, targa or speedster, comes with unique features. While this adds complexity, the broad lineup strengthens sales. Developing such variants or derivatives is a long-standing Porsche tradition. This is laminated glass. A robot first coats it with a thin layer of special adhesive. Then, workers precisely fit the pane into place. A vacuum lifter ensures the glass is positioned with millimeter accuracy. At speeds nearing 320 kilometers per hour, even the smallest flaw in the windshield could be disastrous. With this step, the first section of the assembly line finishes its job. The instrument panel, onboard electronics, and much of the car's body are now finished. An elevator then lowers the future 911 to the level below. From there, it moves through the next stations on a ceiling-mounted rotary conveyor. Along the edge of this section of the assembly line, fuel tanks are lined up and ready to be fitted. They're made of flame-resistant plastic and hold 67 litres. According to the manufacturer, that gives the sports car a highway range of over 750 kilometres. A worker installs the tank from below. In the 911, the tank sits in the front, just behind the luggage compartment. Then comes a milestone moment. The marriage ceremony begins. The term engine marriage describes the joining of the drivetrain with the car body. At this point, two assembly lines converge. On the left, the pre-assembled drive module, complete with suspension, engine and exhaust system, arrives on a driverless transport system from pre-assembly. On the right, the upper section arrives from the assembly line, suspended from the ceiling. When the two sub-assemblies are lined up, one on top of the other, the rotary conveyor slowly lowers the body onto the running gear. The moment of the marriage. 4 employees act as groomsmen, uniting the body and drivetrain with meticulous precision. To guarantee this marriage lasts, they fasten the module using 96 screws. The drivetrain itself was previously assembled on a dedicated line. Technicians previously assembled the drivetrain on an assembly line. 4 independent wheel suspensions for the all-wheel drive, the exhaust line, the transmission, and of course the centerpiece, the boxer engine. That assembly line is housed in a dedicated production hall where 350 employees focus exclusively on building engines. The power units pass through 100 workstations before they're complete. Throughout the process, they undergo multiple functional tests. An I/O, meaning OK, and a green light signal that assembly can proceed. An NIO, which means not OK, indicates that manual rework is required. 40 different models are produced here. They all have one thing in common. They're boxer engines. Each engine arrives as separate components, the 2 halves of the crankcase, the crankshaft, pistons, and 6 connecting rods. At this station, a worker readies the boxer engine assembly by connecting each piston to its respective connecting rod. He then places the completed assemblies into the 6 cylinders, where combustion will take place later. The conveyor belt advances every 2 minutes and 47 seconds. The next worker fits the crankshaft, which will later transfer the piston's motion to the transmission. Inside a safety cage, a robot carefully joins the 2 halves of the boxer engine at a precise 180-degree angle. The boxer engine features 2 rows of 3 cylinders each, positioned flat and directly opposite one another. This design sets it apart from typical engines. In contrast, a conventional V engine arranges its cylinder rows in a V shape, which is where it gets its name. The piston pairs in most engines move with a slight offset, meaning one lags behind the other. In the boxer engine, however, the piston rows are set at a 180-degree angle and work in perfect sync. When one piston moves toward the crankshaft, its counterpart mirrors that exact motion. Like 2 boxers, dancing toward each other and then separating again. This principle results in smoother operation. Most strikingly, the orientation of the boxer engine is not vertical, but lies flat. This approach has a long tradition at Porsche because the 911 has been driven by a horizontal 6-cylinder boxer like this right from the beginning. But today, the turbocharger principle remains the same, even in the models currently coming out of Zuffenhausen. The exhaust gases exiting the engine power the turbine of the turbocharger, which in turn boosts the fresh air supply to the engine, increasing horsepower. In the latest 911, there aren't just one but two turbochargers mounted to the engine block. With these turbochargers, the car produces 650 horsepower. Here as well, the mechanics have only 2 minutes and 50 seconds to finish the installation. They have to keep up the pace. The entire engine must be completely assembled within 5 hours. Finally, each engine goes on the test stand. An employee rolls the engine into a high-security chamber. This is where the heat test is performed. He connects the utilities to the engine, the electrical supply, fuel line, and extraction hoses that capture the exhaust gases. Measurements then confirm whether everything functions correctly and the engine delivers its full power. The fully automated system gradually brings the Boxer engine up to speed. At 2,500 RPM, the engine begins to warm up. The computer then relentlessly pushes power output to the maximum. For 90 seconds, the system applies full throttle. The sensors continuously measure dozens of parameters, such as torque, oil temperature, coolant temperature, fuel pressure, and charge air pressure. This engine has passed the test. The department releases 260 engines per day. Autonomous trolleys carry the engines toward the series production area. The driverless transport system, or FTS, brings them to a sort of shunting yard. Behind these automatic doors lies a massive high-bay storage rack, off-limits to employees. A fully automated crane does all the work, temporarily placing the Boxer engines on the rack. A software program alerts the system when the assembly line requires a particular engine. The crane then promptly retrieves the correct engine, all within just a few minutes. Meanwhile, the FTS is already delivering the next Boxer. Traffic continuously shuttles back and forth. In Zuffenhausen, more electronics than ever before are now installed in the 911. On the final section of the assembly line, this Turbo S is being fitted with key aerodynamic components. At the rear of the sports car, a worker installs crucial components of the movable rear wing. This wing adjusts electromechanically to driving conditions. Once the car reaches 90 km per hour, it deploys automatically. At higher speeds, the wing's angle of attack increases to produce greater downforce. This deployable wing is a hallmark feature, positioned exactly where the iconic ducktail rear spoiler once sat. Variable aerodynamic elements are present at the front as well. A plastic front spoiler is installed beneath the bumper. When filled with compressed air, this component extends while the car is in motion. The airstream is also affected by the flaps, the front air intakes. The onboard computer adjusts the angle of attack according to speed and cooling requirements. Porsche has been producing the 8th generation of the 911 in Zuffenhausen since 2019. The car hangs above the final stretch of the assembly line, where an employee installs the large front wheels with 25.4 centimeters wide tires. Back in 1963, the first generation only needed 18.5 centimetres wide tyres. The rear tyres today are 31.5 centimetres wide, as greater forces act on them. Most of the power from the rear-mounted engine is delivered to the road through the rear wheels. After connecting the 12-volt battery, an employee installs the sports steering wheel. The driver can switch between 5 different driving modes at the press of a button. Finally, the worker installs the driver's airbag. The 911's interior contains 6 airbags in total. The sports car still has no doors. They were removed at the start of the assembly line. Now that the interior is nearly complete, the technicians mount them back in place. Because every gram matters in a sports car, the weight of each component is minimized. The seats in the current 911 are 3 kilograms lighter than those in the previous model. The company's own saddlery handles nearly all of the leatherwork for the interior. It takes roughly 2 entire cowhides to upholster a single car. Employees carefully check the material for any imperfections. Where scars about the size of mosquito bites are too big or haven't healed properly, specialists skillfully work around the imperfections. A computer determines the layout of each piece to reduce waste. The cutting itself is done by a water jet machine. Just over 400 men and women work in the saddlery. They glue and stitch the leather onto doors, trim and dashboards. The 911's interior consists of dozens of individual components. Upholstering them takes around 10 man-hours. According to Porsche, every 911 should be unique. It's estimated that 2 cars with exactly the same equipment leave the factory only about once a year. The possible combinations are nearly endless. Inside, black remains the most popular color. However, classic brown leather continues to be in high demand. But who actually buys a car like this? Over the years, Porsche has developed a clear picture of the typical 911 driver. According to their market research, it's usually a self-employed person, most often a man in his mid-50s. The more horsepower, the younger the buyer tends to be, and he is very loyal to the brand. Customers today pay more than €200,000 for a Turbo S from Zuffenhausen. After 117 manufacturing stations and 56 man-hours, the sports car rolls off the assembly line. One final time, the logistics system lowers the car by 1 floor. Following meticulous quality control, the tyres finally touch the asphalt. It is a tradition that each new 911 should be the best yet. But what the future holds for the 911 remains unknown. One thing, however, is clear. The Boxer engine will remain the heart of this sports car in the years to come. One thing is certain, the 911 will continue to be built in Zuffenhausen, a site already operating at full capacity. The challenge for engineers will be to keep production aligned with cutting-edge technology and logistics, ensuring, in their own words, that the next 911 will be the best ever. Thanks for watching another episode of Behind the Make. If you enjoyed this inside look at the making of the Porsche 911, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell for more behind-the-scenes content. Let us know in the comments what car you'd like to see next.